I work for MSF and I run the kind of missing maps, the MSF version of missing maps. So there's me in various places, in various organisations, because missing maps isn't an organisation, it's a project which various organisations and individuals and institutions contribute to. Just a little bit of background. I started working in MSF on digital communications before there was a website, MSF UK. And so I was asked to help with missing maps initially because I did the initial sort of community building work with MSF UK with their various kind of social media networks and stuff like that. And I was working for a guy called Ivan Gayton, who was the GIS lead in the office. When Ebola happened, Ivan got sucked away to the field to help with Ebola, and I was left with GIS requests coming in because missing maps was kind of mappy. And so I kind of become a sort of GIS guy in MSF, but without any actual training. So any technical questions, probably not for me. So missing maps has grown in the last couple of weeks. CARTO-NG, humanitarian mapping organisation, and Netherlands Red Cross have joined. It was originally started by these four, the most important of which is HOT. Does anybody not know what HOT is? Okay. HOT in a nutshell. OpenStreetMap people. When the earthquake happened in Haiti in 2010, a certain group of people from within the OpenStreetMap community kind of got together and mapped Port-au-Prince to help the relief efforts. This is a real small nutshell as well. Since then, they kind of realised the benefit of this. Like search and rescue were using OSM data within hours to find people in the rubble. And they realised the benefit of this, and they kind of formalised into not a splinter group of OpenStreetMap, sort of.
Subgroup.
Say again?
Subgroup.
Subgroup.
Not a splinter group. The other lot.
And they've responded in amazing numbers and with great passion in many disasters since then, mapping like hundreds of thousands of square kilometres in Ebola and Nepal and Haiyan and all these different emergencies. Just to explain a little bit what the difference is between what HOT does and the Missing Maps project. So HOT is great at responding to stuff that you see on the news. So there's an earthquake, HOT is on it, and they are providing data that anyone is using on the ground within moments. There's not many news stories about South Sudan, there's not many news stories about Central African Republic, and there's not many news stories about Chad, but there have been ongoing humanitarian crises there for decades. And the data is as important there as it is in Nepal after the earthquake in Wales. So the Missing Maps project was an attempt for these organisations to join HOT and to scale HOT using the kind of communications power and volunteer base that they kind of naturally have to be able to respond to forgotten crises as well as kind of BBC, CNN emergencies. So that's kind of the difference between the two. Dave already mentioned this earlier, the idea of a distributed network. So beyond those organisations that were represented on the screen earlier are loads of other people who don't appear on the website. They're academic institutions, civil society groups, lots of people contributing, lots of very tiny things that make Missing Maps what it is, make it the kind of big picture. And that includes individuals as well. And it's only through this kind of distributed network, which probably represents HOT and OSM quite well anyway, that we're able to do what we do collectively. So it's an important one. And on each of the case studies I'm going to show, I put a little list at the bottom of the main people who have contributed to that particular case study. So base mapping. Missing Maps seeks to provide base maps in places where there are none, where it would be really useful for people responding to humanitarian emergencies. How do we do it? Firstly, there's the remote mapping. So this is about as close to an action shot as you get at a mapping party. But does everyone know what a mapping party is? Okay. Mapping party is when lots of people get together in a room and they use satellite imagery and a map editor to kind of digitize the features they see on the satellite imagery. So they draw shapes and draw lines and draw points where they see the stuff that they've been tasked to map. So typically a mapping party concentrates on one particular project, so people get together around a particular project. And these have been the kind of the backbone of the Missing Maps process in terms of remote mapping. It's It's occasionally a bit like Fight Club when Brad Pitt's talking to Ed Norton. They're asking, like, did you know there's a Fight Club in Philadelphia? No, did you? The mapping parties happen like that. It's really good fun. It's like one pops up in Geneva and you only find out about it afterwards, or in Berlin or whatever. So people are kind of really taking these mapping parties and running with them, which is absolutely brilliant. And although the mapping party is in the first stage in the process, it's helpful in terms of kind of specific humanitarian use. And I'm only talking MSF examples here. So Red Cross and Qatar NGO will all have different case studies. So this is a village in South Sudan. There's a thing called a rapid nutrition assessment, which is where an MSF field team will hear of a displaced population or particularly bad malnutrition in an area, and they'll go and do a survey to see what they need to provide. So they usually have a GPS coordinate, and that's about it. And they either fly or drive to this place. They sit down with someone local and they draw a map. Because to do a good survey, you have to organise it, right? It's a process. You don't just wander around asking if people are hungry. They sit down and draw a map. If they were flying a helicopter, they'd actually hover over the area and draw the map from the air. They asked us if we could provide them the maps preemptively. So this is a case where in the area surrounding Minyal, however you say it, we were able to give them maps, and they were able to go to this place and not only have a pre-planned survey route, which means it was much quicker, more effective, and a better sample, but also a building count, and therefore like a rough idea of population estimate, which is extremely helpful. Refugee camps is another one. So it's fairly easy to map refugee camps from satellite imagery, like the dwellings usually stand out quite well. And so the example on the left is in Doro refugee camp in South Sudan. It was an MSF team who wanted to do a vaccine survey to see what people were vaccinated and weren't in order to respond and fill the gaps in the vaccinations. Again, they didn't have a map. They asked if we could help. Missing maps volunteers mobilized and mapped the area within a couple of weeks, and they did their survey based on that data, and they loved it. They've never heard of missing maps before, and the feedback we got was almost gushing, which is unheard of from an MSF field team, who usually respond with like thanks. Or even in one case, thank. Didn't bother putting yes on. This is Gambela, over the border from South Sudan and Ethiopia. And not only were we able to map it, but we were able to help MSF create a rough addressing system, which for surveying, again, especially on long term, is extremely important. And the epidemiologists working there said once they'd received this data, they were able to do their first mobility study in 4 months, which is again a long time not to be seeing what the health problems are in a refugee camp. So the next stage of the mapping is field mapping, and Carmen covered this already to some extent. That's taking the data that's being traced from the satellite imagery, taking it to the field, and helping, facilitating local people to add the local data, which makes it really useful. So these are guys from Bangladesh. I think that guy actually worked with Carmen as well. Out in a slum area in Dhaka, mapping the area. So talking to local people, finding out what the local data was, and then they did part of the input into OSM themselves, and the rest got sent back to London, and a mapping party like Missing Maps volunteers helped digitise that handwritten data. So this is important. Why? Because the slum and the industrial zone above the slum to the north are in the top 5 most toxic places in the world. So 90-95% of Dhaka's tanneries and industry is in this area. There's very, very little in the way of protective clothing processes. There's lots of occupational health issues, illnesses associated with chemicals. The guys in Bangladesh mapped the area and also mapped all the tanneries. So MSF was then able to go and do a survey of the tanneries, finding out what chemicals were being used, what protective clothing was available, what problems people were having, what injuries they were facing. And since then, they've actually located occupational health clinics in this area. So they've used the data that was created by the hundreds of people who contributed to actually implement healthcare. So I'm trying to show you examples today which have had impact, essentially. So it's not only going and finding a local OSM community, as in Bangladesh, but as I said earlier, in Central African Republic, like that doesn't exist. People don't have electricity in Bangassou, let alone JOSM. So this is kind of integrating field mapping into MSF processes. So these guys are health promoters. Their job is to go out into the rural communities and find out what health issues there are, make sure local people know that MSF is free at the point of access healthcare, what they can come with, what they need to bring, all that sort of stuff. So they go into the bush, essentially, like they're the perfect mappers. And so we taught them how to use ODK Collect, which is an open source surveying app on the phone. Amazing because neither of them had ever seen a smartphone before, barely used a computer, and yet within a day, no problem whatsoever. So these guys, over the last 4 or 5 months, have continued to map during their general work. And we've gone from, this is Google Map, but that was actually more detailed than OSM this time last year. We've gone from this to this. So pretty much every village in the catchment area of MSF's medical service is mapped, and also kind of Bangassou town itself and the various administrative divisions. And this helps the local the MSF team there are supporting increasingly local rural health centres. So this helps them understand how many people they've got in their catchment area, what sort of resource they need to apply to that health centre. So again, it's operational decision making based on good data, which is posted in that sense. Another example of this, in the town of Mossala in Chad, there's huge malaria problems in this whole region. And you see there's a river just to the east of Mossala there. MSF France works in Mossala, but they rarely cross the river for access reasons, and the people from the other side can't really get to the hospital. So they piloted a fumigation campaign, and this was crossing the river en masse with trucks, fumigating houses in 130-something villages. But they'd never been there, and so they didn't know where the villages were or how many there were. So they sent a couple of teams in Land Cruisers out over here with GPS units, and they clicked and got the name of the village and various other bits of information in each village. This was then digitized again by Missing Maps volunteers into OpenStreetMap, and we're able to give them a map with distances between villages and other kind of useful mapping products in order to conduct the pilot. So far, these examples have helped get stuff to people that need it. But actually, none of them are examples of where map data is saving lives directly. Like, it's definitely logistically very, very useful, but it would be wrong to think that before we mapped Mossala, the MSF team couldn't have done a fumigation campaign. Like, NGOs have been working in very difficult places for decades. If there wasn't maps, they find someone local and they sit them in a truck and they drive around them. Like, there's ways around this. So the examples previously have made the work easier, more efficient, and better, and it's a better use of resources because of it. But the real reason for MSF being part of the Missing Maps project is about patient data and epidemiology. So, anyone not know this map? Okay, this map was made by John Snow in 1854. It's a cholera map of an outbreak in Soho in London. This guy is generally known as the father of modern epidemiology. So, cholera outbreak, thousands of people infected, hundreds of people dying. He went around house to house and took data for all the people who were infected. And he made this map, and you can see the lines here are actually individual cases at addresses. And so the story goes, it's a little bit more complicated than the short version, but he essentially found the source of the cholera, which was a pump, and a pump that was an inch away from a cesspit, and removed the handle and padlocked the pump, and so ended the outbreak. Again, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's roughly the story. So this is, what, 170 years ago? And we can't do, in most of the places where we're facing cholera, what John Snow did in London because we don't have the map. Carmen already showed this slide, but it's a good one. So this is way before I even knew what GIS stood for. But this was a logistician, so essentially someone who makes sure the medics can get where they need to go and have got the right drugs and all that sort of stuff. And he saw during cholera outbreak in Congo, his medics poring over these line lists, these spreadsheets of patients, trying to work out like where to put the intervention, where their resources was best spent. And he thought, this is stupid. Like, there's got to be better ways than this. And he actually got in touch with HOP directly, and HOP helped him by mapping the town. He then taught himself QGIS, the bits he needed to know, and produced stuff like this, which is an attack rate, and basically shows what the incidence rate of cholera is in certain areas. This is a prime example of where patient data and geographic data can be put together to produce something which actually does save lives. Like cholera, if it's treated, like you have a very, very, very small chance of dying. If it's untreated, you have a very, very large chance of dying. Like where you put your treatment centre, where you put your chlorination points, is a life and death decision. And in fact, the missing map started because my boss Ivan was in Haiti when cholera happened after the earthquake. He was finding he was making decisions of where to put stuff that would save people based on no geographical data. He didn't know, he knew names of villages and stuff, he didn't know where they were. He was kind of guessing, and that's what a lot of NGOs and stuff do because it isn't available. So this guy did it for himself, and consequently the whole team was evacuated before they got a chance to do anything with it, but that's kind of a different story. This is another example of a similar thing. So this is actually in Carrefour in Haiti. It's actually a retrospective look at cholera data. So if this had been out at the time, it would have been great, but it wasn't. This is a joke to differentiate that patient was from there and that patient was from there. So this is what we're going for in terms of patient data. Admin divisions, which are kind of, until we're all using what three words, admin divisions are kind of key because that's how people address themselves. Where do you live? Okay, in which commune, in which quartier, in which spanner. Like you can break down someone's location by a hierarchy of admin divisions. But what about in Dakar? Because these are the mahallas, and this is my map, so it's terrible, right? But it kind of explains what I want to explain. These are the mahallas. So these are the official admin divisions, the kind of smallest admin division you get to. But if someone from here comes into a clinic and they say where you're from, they're not going to say Sanatangar. They're going to say Mokbazar because they don't use the mahallas. Well, there's a market in there called Mokbazar, and that's what they use. So when we went field mapping in Bangladesh, the mahallas were easy, they're available. We had to actually map unofficial neighbourhoods. We had to find out what people called where they lived and then find out what the limits of that place was. And that was hard. And that happens in lots and lots of different places. Like someone here could be from either the mahalla or two different unofficial neighbourhoods. Like that's hard to represent on a patient origin column. It's a huge, huge challenge. And like going to a slum, it gets even worse. Data collection. Paper and pencils, which is my favourite. Does anyone not know what field papers are? Sort of had to tech up a bit. So we're now trying to use ODK, and the legendary Ivan, who I mentioned far too many times when I'm talking, maybe I'll change his name. The legendary Martha piloted something in Sierra Leone during Ebola. So it's important with Ebola that you follow up the patients to find out who they've been in contact with, because you can pass on the disease for 21 days without even knowing you've got it. And he was in a region called Tonkalili, and they didn't have a map, so it was really hard to follow up those patients. So he said to the guard at the clinic gate, like, have you got any friends with smartphones? And the guard said, yes, son. He said, okay, well, tell them that the first 12 at this gate tomorrow has got a job. So they turn up with their smartphones, and Ivan says, turn your Bluetooth on and take this app. It's called ODK. There's a survey in it. The first 12 people that complete the survey correctly, you've got a job. And so these guys are like working out this fairly simple surveying software, and 12 people get the job. They hire 12 people with motorbikes, and the mapper and the motorbike, they go off into the bush. And every village they come to, they take a point and they fill out a survey. They mapped 7% of Sierra Leone in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. It was a nightmare. The data that came back, like, we weren't ready for it, and it was like, so British Red Cross, again, being the legends that they are, worked on processes for that. But what if you're really in the bush? Like, that survey relies on you getting an internet connection at the end of the day and being able to upload your data so someone can actually do something with it. If you're really in the bush, like, that's not possible. So we started trying to develop mini servers for data collection. So now, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, you can go to the field with this thing the size of a 50p piece and say to someone, okay, log on to the Wi-Fi called Missing Maps, whatever. They log on that server is everything they need. They've got the APK for the app, they've got instructions, and it's all built in. When they get back at the end of the day, they connect to that server. Like, you give 12 people in Sierra Leone an internet connection, the thing they don't do is upload their map data. They download everything they want to see for the next 2 weeks, and it slows your internet service by some degree. So those are some field challenges. This is a remote mapping challenge. So I guess some of you know him. Yeah, hands up if you know him. Okay. So this is Harry. He's kind of a stalwart of the SotM London community, and he's also an ex-board member of HOT. He really knows what he's doing. Like, anything we do in mapping parties, Harry can do with his eyes shut at 300 miles an hour. No problem. And when I first went to mapping parties in London, they were HOT mapping parties before Missing Maps had a name. And you have essentially kind of 12 Harrys or thereabouts in the room, doing great stuff at enormous speeds that you definitely couldn't follow. What Missing Maps has done with this kind of broadening of reach and getting the NGOs involved is included a whole load of other people who really don't give a shit about mapping. They want to help MSF, they want to help Red Cross. And these are the Beths. So Beth is a graphic designer, never mapped. She came because she likes MSF and she wants to help, and she doesn't have any money and she's not going to become a doctor, and previously those are the only other 2 ways you can help. So this is the Harry Beth problem. Like, Harry, you can set him on any task and he'll do it brilliantly, right? And really fast. Beth, she needs a lot of help. And she doesn't like wikis. She doesn't really read wikis. Like, she likes YouTube videos and stuff. And she might come to a second mapping party, but she might not. She might just donate 2 hours of her time. The infrastructure that is available for Harry to map, so the OSM created tools and the HOT created tools are wonderful, but they were built for and by people who like mapping. We now have thousands of people who don't know anything about mapping, and they don't engage with wikis, and they don't want to be on a mailing list. God, you know how many messages you get on a HOT mailing list? Yeah. So we've got these 1 hour, 2 hour people, maybe they come to 3 mathons and they lose interest, they go and do something else, and that's fine. Like, they're a huge resource. Like, there's thousands and thousands of them. Like, when we started Missing Maps, we were worried we wouldn't be able to fill mapping parties, and the first one sold out in days, and sometimes now it's hours. And this is like rooms for 50, 100 people. So people are not the problem, but they're not necessarily going to turn into Harry. So we've got to provide. Not that you want Beth to turn into Harry. We've got to provide processes and tools and explanations and resources for Beth to be able to have an impact in 2 hours. Like, so whether that's different versions of ID Editor or Tasking Manager, or whether it's something where on her mobile phone she gets a little piece of satellite imagery and she clicks yes if there's a house in it, and no if there's not, and builds a picture that way. Huge challenge. Like, abundance of these people, limited amount of these people, everything caters for these people. So we've got all these challenges, so we decided to go bigger, right? Base mapping at scale, preemptive mapping. Most of the examples I've shown you are a response to something. Even if it's not a BBC scale emergency, they're a response to something. So what do we really want is, we want to map at scale. Like, This is very recent. This is in Katanga in Congo. It's a measles outbreak that's affecting thousands and thousands and thousands of people across an area the size of Spain. We get a GPS coordinate come in from the field and they say, this is Lake Kabwe. We know there's villages around here, but we don't know where they are and we don't know how many people are in them. Can you look? It's like, okay, yeah. You give someone a couple of hours in Google Earth and they can look and they can count and put pins in and stick it in QGIS and send back a KML file that the field can look at in Google Earth and then say, okay, most of the people are around here, let's go here first, and they can coordinate. This is a small part of one of 24 health zones that MSF is responding in. To do this at a scale which would be useful universally for the vaccination campaign is unsustainable, especially if you happen to use Google Earth because the Bing imagery isn't good enough in OSM. What if Katanga territory in Congo was mapped already? That would be something. This is from the same intervention, the same measles vaccination. This is a team that never heard of missing maps and didn't really know about GIS, but they drew everything they found that was new. And I found out about this by chance. And we can now take this and we can do our best to put the data into OSM. And we tried bits and pieces and it kind of works. But it's slow, and they did it after the fact and not before the fact. And in fact, that example from South Sudan with the rapid nutrition assessments, that was an example of impact, but I think we mapped 7 regions of South Sudan before we finally got one that MSF actually went to, because their priorities changed in days. They get you information, you've got 50 people mapping 4 villages in the area, and suddenly they're like, yeah, we're not going there anymore, we're going there. And so you stick another task in the tasking manager, and everyone brushes over it, and oh yeah, sorry, we're going to go there now. So we thought, okay, South Sudan, there's a rainy season where MSF can't do squat anyway. Why don't we map the whole of Unity State in the rainy season? Next time we get that, just make them a map. We don't have to mobilize volunteers. We can do this at scale, preemptively. That's really where the benefit will come from. So we decided on South Kivu. South Kivu will be our first trying to map a province. Again, it's in Congo. It's a territory that's a little bit smaller than Ireland. It's home to about 5 million people and horrendous list of diseases and conflicts and militias. It's one of the hardest places to work in the world. And we chose it because if we can map this, we can map anywhere, right? If you can do this, nothing can't be done. I kind of wish we didn't choose it now, because we've actually just started trying. And it's very, very hard. That idea of sending someone from the town of Baraka on a motorbike out to do all the villages, the rural areas, which we planned, it's a great way of doing South Kivu. We just sent Claire Hallura, who's also an ex-HOP board member, who's working with us on this, to South Kivu, and she comes back and saying, you send someone out on 50% of the roads in that bit of South Kivu, and the phone will be gone in 2 hours. They hit a roadblock, everything will be stolen. So it's so we can't use phones, we can't use field papers. How do we map the rural areas of this? And let's be clear, the rural areas are where we want to map. Anyone can map the towns. So we're running into that sort of problem. Been talking to Nick and Greg about maybe you can put a GPS logger, strap it to a bike so it looks like a bit of bike, and then you can take the time of your survey and then you can reference it back to the GPS track that the logger's got. Don't know yet, but if you've got ideas, please help.
Have you thought about using a drone? I know it'll get shot down, but they're quite cheap now.
Second?
You can't really see it.
Yeah, well, I'd love to entertain the possibility. The fact that MSF is a bit backwards in terms of that sort of stuff, and saying to an MSF team in Baraka, can we bring drones to fly out over the urban areas of South Kivu? They'll say no. I don't know what the range and stuff is like, but we're talking here, there's not a town nearby. You really have to get close to be able to map it. And I don't know what the range is like, and you should take the drone down the road.
Just to give you some perspective, I work in a different area of mapping. I map seabird distribution from boats, and people record their position with GPS, and then we offset them and we produce maps. Aeroplanes were doing this with visual observers talking I think the technology is already available to you, and you could almost certainly find someone within your network of supporters who will do all the work logistics for nothing.
I'd love to talk more about it, but drones can't collect village names, and they can't collect alternate village names, and they can't get the village chief's phone number. You know,
but then you take the sort of, you get it validated not on the ground, but by sitting down with the village chief in a nice, safe environment, and his family connections will fill the gaps with the names of what they see.
Yeah, so essentially doing the remote mapping with the drones and then following up. Yeah, it's a possibility. I'm trying not to discount any possibilities at the moment. I wouldn't say we've bitten off more than we can chew, but
as I say, I don't think they'll last very long in the sky.
This is also
They'll be shot down.
Just a small anecdote, but there's a guy replacing Ivan, so there's going to be a GIS lead in MSF UK again in 2 weeks, and he's just come back from South Kivu. He's been the project coordinator, and I was talking to him initially about how we could access the hard-to-reach place in South Kivu, and he said it's not easy, but it's possible. Like, I think he was going somewhere around here. It's called the Atongwe Plateau. It's up high. Barely anyone ever goes there. And he said, it's not easy, it's possible. You know, I've spent 3 months talking to 25 militia groups in order to secure our access to the Atongwe Plateau. And I was like, right. Okay. Fundamental to missing maps, of course, is OpenStreetMap, because it does allow all the guys in Bangladesh to map their local community, and it's easy for them to engage with, and they really love it. Like, they're doing cool stuff. And like I said before, they're teaching other NGOs how to collect data in an intelligent way and what it can be used for. It also has the flexibility to allow us to map unofficial neighbourhoods and to work out, you know, with the hot community, how maybe, you know, the banners and the mahallas, that's easy, but how do you map boulders out? Like, how do you put that in? And obviously the communities that come with it have been so super supportive. Like, Potter, a founding member of Missing Maps anyway, but if there's ever a problem with anything, like someone comes to your aid almost immediately. Like, they've bemoaned the amount of emails that come from the hot list, but it's beautiful. Like, you get responses very, very fast, and like, I'm so thankful for having it. And the last thing is the volunteers. Like, this whole thing is volunteer run. Like, say, in Congo, you have to set pay some people. In Central African Republic, we have to use them stuff, but 99.999% of the work is done by volunteers, which is incredible. And I like to say the volunteers are superheroes, but that's only kind of a cheesy caption for this picture. And so, yeah, if you've ever contributed to Missing Maps or other humanitarian mapping, thanks. Like, it really is having an impact in MSF's work, and it looks like that's going to increase tenfold in the months to come.
So I'm just going to keep Pete up here for a while to take any other questions from the floor. Can I just ask, you said at the beginning that you, there's somebody like you in many different kinds of organisations. Are you actually employed by MSF?
I am, yeah. I'm actually the only person that works full-time on Missing Maps. Like, the people in the other, like British Red Cross has a maps team, American Red Cross has a GIS team, and within those teams, Missing Maps is part of their work. We don't really have a maps team, so there's nice jobs like that.
Yeah.
How would one go about trying to raise an area for Missing Maps to start contributing?
So it tends to be NGO focused. So the collaboration is open. So, like say, two have just joined. To join the Missing Maps, you have to sign up to a memorandum of understanding, which basically says you're mapping for humanitarian reasons in places where there are vulnerable populations, and you'll map responsibly.
Be an NGO?
You kind of do, but
The social enterprises.
Well, there's joining Missing Maps as a partner, but if you had like a one-off project that you said, I want people to help with, you can, and then if you talk to the right people, like 5 people for a free copy or something. Get them a free copy in the break, and then say, can you put my project on the tasking manager? He can technically do that, if I'm right?
Yeah, what I'd say is, as a member of HOT, I'd be happy to help, but really, that's a HOT thing. Like, they are quick to deal with that, and they're great at that. Like, Missing maps isn't replacing Hot in any way. It's just trying to do some things which Hot haven't got the capacity to do. So that sort of stuff you see on the Hot list all the time, like I've got this project, want it mapped, can you help me? And someone will.
So you might still need to promote it yourself and say, hey,
Well,
work on my
as you said
project.
about Hot, they're usually in rapid response, responding to disasters as opposed to something which is ongoing.
Yes.
To that related issue.
But if you make the case and you're a person, like you'll be responded to. Like it might not be that they'll like mobilise thousands of people to map for you. You might have to organise your own mapping parties, but you know, so be it. They're not that difficult to organise.
Sorry, I was just wondering about the conversation about drones and if you have dense forest cover, how does that work with mapping using drones?
Well, for the mandatory, you just get the trees.
Yeah.
If you wanted to make the wood from the trees, you need LiDAR. And then just like it in airplane. Just say that now and then.
If you wanted to map people and animals,
Yeah. It tends to be in Congo actually that while there's loads and loads of tree cover, there's usually clearings around it. So the same with the remote mapping from satellite. You can usually see them. Sometimes they're difficult and it's very hard to count the houses because some of them will be under tree cover, but there's usually a gap cleared at some stage.
The issue with using drones to map a large area, we already looked into that from Malawi to go through some Malawi partnership and trying to calculate it. One I showed you today, 45 minutes, you can get 10 square kilometres. If you're flying a kilometre up, that's how you go to jail if you do that in the UK. But the idea would be it would take you, you would have to have 100 drones really. Good news is you can fly 8 on one laptop, but at the same time, it's not a solution. And it still doesn't get rid of the fact that you're trying to identify villages and map them and put all the attributes there. Yeah. So, yeah. I wonder if actually, sorry, I had a suggestion as well. South Sudan is a great example where we didn't have electricity, water, these things, but also the North Sudanese also owning mobile networks. We couldn't use cell phones for a conflict early warning system.
No.
So we used high-frequency radios attached to Ushahidi as a reporting app. So only one person had electricity in the whole of Eastern Equatoria. But actually, what 3 words could be an outstanding application for high-frequency radios to start doing that, because the distribution of high-frequency radios is so that it's really cost-effective with establishing a network of communication.
Interesting.
I was going to say, I had a go last night, which was great fun. Everyone else tried it. And I spent the day kind of wondering, I wonder what the house was. What I was wondering though, I kind of found that a lot of the work was almost just looking for shadows, which indicated walls of buildings. I'm not really an image processing person, but I kind of wonder if anybody has knows it's possible. I kind of almost felt like it's possible to kind of say this looks like a building, and then for a person to go to and kind of go yeah, or no, maybe speed up some of the.
So kind of microtask in the.
Well, almost get a
Computer automation.
Yeah, get some kind of vision.
It's only with a drone right there you can automatically extract buildings, walls and stuff.
But I even wonder if it's possible from the Bing imagery, which we can use.
It is, yeah. Then there's a MSF unit in Vienna which does that kind of algorithmic imagery analysis.
Okay.
And for refugee camps, it's great. But in South Sudan, where it's a brown house on a brown background on a brown day, like it's not there. It's not there yet.
Okay.
You can classify colours. For example, you building tends to be a certain colour.
It can vary as well, depending on what area, what it looks like. And if we're saying we thought someone to do the missing map stuff, and he's they're tracing trucks, that are parked along, and obviously your computer might do the same. It's a rectangle with about a story high.
Yeah, I wonder, stuff which is kind of really hard to do as a person, I suspect is going to be really hard to, because it's hard mapping, I think, and that's where, I've done a lot of looking at it, but you look and you kind of go, is that wall, is that building, what is that thing?
It's that thing that, taking part in pre-marathons, it's very difficult sometimes in an area where you're not familiar with the architecture, what the building actually looks like.
Yeah. Actually, that's something. I was wondering. Almost, you need some photos of something looks like on the ground, with what something looks like in the imagery, just to get you started on some of the mapping
We've
tasks.
just done this. Like Claire came back from South Kivu, took a load of geotag photos,
Yeah.
very mundane stuff, like
Brilliant.
buildings, roads, rivers, and we will already do a lot of tracing
Yeah.
and stuff, but it's quite hard to source pictures of that sort of stuff. In
Exactly.
the place we're working, but yeah, we're working on that.
Yeah, something where you can say this is what it looks like on the ground and this is what it looks like in the air. I think would be really, even just knowing what kind of buildings you're looking at, what kind of roof style it is.
Parts of Africa, and, are these round things, are those houses, or are they other structures?
I think sometimes it's possible to spend a bit too much time on the detail. If you're looking at, say, Lubumbashi, okay, we've got an enormous city. If we're 99% accurate, that's better than 0%.
True.
Even 60% accurate.
So why worry too much about whether it's park truck and somebody else? You look at it, they map it, the next person looks at it and they say yes or no.
Yeah.
There is that layer in there, and if they're doing a ground survey, they look like and say, hang on a second, somebody reparked that building 40 yards away.
I suppose if there's another new aerial imagery that you get that suddenly, 90% of the houses are still there and some of them have moved, and they're either they've been demolished or they were trucks.
It's the thing to consider. If you look at OpenStreetMap in Edinburgh, there are a team of people that love Edinburgh. They're updating the map consistently. Is this going to happen in the other places? It's just something to consider when you start looking at these areas. We go through, we map it. Local people go out, they answer the mapping. It's something that we more or less need to induce in the area, that there are people that care for that and update that, and they see that as a resource for them that they can make something from.
There is a danger though, like it's back to what William was saying before lunch about those individuals, who they are and what their preconceptions of why they're mapping as well would have a big impact. And without that local insight or push and drive from the grassroots, then you suffer a lot. A good example is what's considered a family doma, is a collection of huts, and most people would just count the number of domas and compare some of huts. But from people that live that area, they would just map every hut. And there is something about maintaining it and keeping it quality without that grassroots movement. Kind of hard to keep that today. I wanted to ask as well, because you mentioned aerial imagery and drones, probably not the best idea if you're going to get shut down as well, but do missing maps do any advocacy work by pressurizing groups like Digital Globe and the other satellite imagery companies who continually make rural Africa one of the least resolute, most costly imagery you can possibly find?
No, we don't advocate them. We talk to them. Say that Missing Maps isn't an organisation that can advocate it. Maybe NSF could advocate, maybe Red Cross could advocate, but as Missing Maps, that's not really.
There are a group of people within HOP who specialise in contacts within the digital community here in the community. Quite what legally or requests they've got is a great deal of further, I don't know. They do seem to be able to use goods when need it quickly. The problem we've got here is that quickly means BBC, CNN moments.
Yeah.
Actually, the need is there all the time. Could we get that imagery?
And we did the microtasking thing for imagery analysis of South Kivu. So one piece of imagery, is it clear? Could you map from it? Yes, no. And we did that, and it's over half of South Kivu doesn't have imagery up to standard for doing map mapping. And it's the size of Ireland.
Just a note on advocacy. I mean, NSF, a lot of the imagery, for example, comes from places where NSF wants nothing to do with it. So, military, anything that's dodgy in terms of compromising our neutrality.
So the HIU, the State Department imagery people, they give imagery to humanitarian organisations. But particularly NSF, we can't accept it because it compromises what we're doing.
With some of, I think, not the kind of pressurised this imagery, but before there was OpenStreetMap, which is just a collection of people, 2 million registered users fumbling around, and the kind of more organised things like HOTS and I guess Missing Map meant they can say, we are a humanitarian organisation, we're, this is who we are. We can talk to you on your kind of level, school, we gain learning how to talk to humanitarian organisations. Give us your imagery, we can put it here. Whereas before it was like, I guess I can represent OpenStreetMap, but they can bob there, you know, and it's so that's covered a bit. Yeah. Well, I've got a high-vis jacket that says OpenStreetMap.
So just another thought, just kind of thinking about the internet mapping that we're doing this morning. Are there any organisations that are able to extract, kind of thinking like cell phone traffic, you know, which at least plot density around city, population density? Is that an area that's sort of valid? You know, it wouldn't be a building map, it might at least give a sort of rough population density against.
Yeah, or even an indication that there's population there.
Yeah.
Mapbox did something like that. They wanted to map the difference between Android and Apple and BlackBerry users, but they had to be smartphones that connect to the internet, and they made a world map of it. But you'll see most of Sub-Saharan Africa at the time was pretty sparse.
Is there like triangulation that you can do in terms of cell phone coverage, not the data, but that's all owned by mobile companies, and they will never, ever use that.
There are two sources of that to be gathered. Mozilla have got a scheme whereby you can have an app on your phone and you go around and gather it, which is going to be great in Edinburgh. Probably not many people doing that, but talking about. And there was another data source not so easily available, which was open source on cell towers, etc., which I think Mozilla have built on. So
MIT Mobile Miner.
I only know of one source, keypad number 3, which was doing it in the background, but they are gathering that data and it's there. I think mainly it's used by people that are producing it as the GPS just on the phone, but that data is there.
I think it's called Open Cell ID or something like that, which is what keypad mapper submits to, but it's that choosing, and again it's a smartphone, it's choosing, I want to submit what phone tower I'm using, so it's not in
there was an amazing keynote speech at the MSF Scientific Day this year by Kenneth Cukier, who's like the data correspondent for The Economist, and he was talking about big data. And apparently during the Ebola crisis, someone thought, like, well, we can see where people are by mobile phone signal, and even during the Ebola crisis, with all the tra-la-la that went along with it, the phone companies refused to release the data.
I hope that quite often telco operators in just West Africa do those data and take out somebody do quite a lot of analysis, trying to look at population movements and across possible routes of transmission in Sierra Leone. I haven't heard of any ways in which it would actually show to be useful. But I know a lot of mapping was on using that data.
Okay.
But I don't know specific references to how they can try and find that.
I have to rewatch it totally.
There is one other little invention that came out in Adobe last year called the key pod. And the concept is that there's so many old laptops now that are a bit useless, but the idea is that you can remove the processing chip and the hard drive until you're just left with the keyboard and the screen. Actually, any local electrician who does that would make a profit because they would sell a hard drive and processing chip. The idea is the key pod is like a USB stick that they gave distributed to like 80,000 kids in the world on the net. Little Android device, and they plug it in, and they all get their own Google Gmail, Google Calendar, Docs, and stuff like that. And they were making a at the end of last year about trying